Hello and welcome to the Bend Like Bamboo Resilience Show. To bend like bamboo is to master change with flexibility. And on the show, I get to interview very special guests about resilience, their amazing stories, and we're going to learn so much from the wonderful Nick Moss today. Thanks so much for being on the show, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Let me introduce you properly. So Nick is one of Australia's most innovative health and fitness practitioners and educators. After his time as a soldier in the Australian Army, Nick developed a keen interest in high performance and rehabilitation. From there, he studied personal training, kinesiology, mind-body medicine, and integrative medicine, which equipped him to deal with the types of complex issues that clients present with. I can relate. He became a lecturer in those modalities for the College of Complementary Medicine and has written courses in the field of sports therapy, kinesiology, corrective exercise, and manual therapy. It's Nick's passion to study the human brain and nervous system, and most recently applied and functional neurology and bachelor in myotherapy. In addition to developing functional neuro health, as a premier-based brain-based therapy service and education provider, Nick has another business called Integrative Vitality. There is going to be so much to talk about today, Nick. When I first met you and we had that lunch, so everyone, I found Nick on Instagram, and then I was just so impressed by his work. I literally reached out to you and said, "Can we have lunch? I have to meet you."
Yeah, you like that.
It was, and it was just so wonderful to meet you in the flesh. And I just think you do incredible work. And now after seeing you, even as a client, I know that you do incredible work. And just, start at the start. Like, what interested you to get into this field of work?
Right at the beginning. So I suppose, where do I start, really? So I've always wanted to serve people.
Yeah.
Always. And that's, I suppose, what drove me to eventually join the military.
Yeah.
Because it was about serving something bigger than yourself. Even though you don't really know exactly why you do those things at the time, you can rationalize why, but you don't really know until you go past and you look back and you can see exactly why you did that. But that was all preparing me for my career right now. So it's always been about service, serving others, trying to care for others. So from there, when I joined the military, it was basically giving me that sense of discipline and tenacity and resilience, which I knew I needed. I mean, I think I had that naturally as well, but I needed to refine it a bit more. I needed to become part of a team building process, and just experience the world and just go to places that I know I never would normally go. And whatever was going to come from that was going to come from that. At one stage, I was going to be a career soldier. I mean, I loved the job, to be honest. I loved the bushwork, the getting dirty, all that sort of stuff. And, when I came out, it was like basically, okay, so I left because I didn't want to become institutionalized, right? I didn't want to be one of those guys that had done 20 years, they get out and then just sort of institutionalized by the system. They don't know how to reintegrate into civilian life.
Yeah.
I didn't want to become one of those guys, and I knew there was a big, big world out there. So I was like, okay, let's get out for a few years and just put your feet in the water and see how you go. And if it doesn't work out, then you can always get back in.
How old were you then when you decided to go out?
It was about 23, 24.
And how old were you when you started?
18.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was a baby. Like, I can't believe some of the stuff I did, like, at that age. Like, it was like, I had my 21st in Baghdad. So,
wow.
I know, it's insane. But came out and I was like, okay, it was that sort of crux point. So just go out, put your foot in the water, see what's out there. I was a bit frustrated by the fact that I was controlled. I could always follow orders and do all that sort of stuff, but it was the fact that you couldn't go and do whatever you want. So I went out and, guys either they joined at that time, it was you go to the mines, you go to private security, or you go into fitness. And so I was like, did a little bit of private security work. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to go into fitness. And I went into running my PT business in a big box gym. So it was the polar opposite of being, babied and looked after and everything, you know, paid for, and you get paid on the same day every 2 weeks, to generating your own income. And I loved it because I loved the freedom, and I was very successful first 2 years of that. I just really went at it, and I was very lucky to be exposed to some pretty high level thinkers in that field, such as Paul Chek. His system even has the word kinesiology in it, so it's more the American term, but we'll come to that later on what that really means. But when I started to see that you could actually, within fitness even, there was a wider scope of holistic health, that's when I was like, oh, that's why I'm doing this stuff, because it's not just to, you know, lift weights. Like I could do that, all that sort of stuff. I could work out really hard, but that's not really what it was about. It was about helping people holistically, again, serving. But I knew that I needed to know a lot more than I already did, because there was only, you do your weekend courses here and there, and you know, I didn't really realize how much you had to commit to learning to be good at this stuff.
Yeah. And particularly going just from a structural level to the biochemical, to the emotional, to the spiritual, to the electromagnetic. Exactly.
There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. It's quite daunting. And then I was like, what actually happened, and this will sort of talk about the resilience side of things, is generally it's transitioning from the military. It's hard for everyone. It's not easy for anyone. And there are different reasons as to why it would be easier for one person or another. I think I transitioned quite well initially. I still was friends with a lot of the guys. I was essentially still one of the boys, right? But then as things started to shift and change and relationship breakdown, and then I started to confront with my shadow, right? The shadow aspect of myself. I was not prepared for that. And everything fell apart, basically. I knew I was, it just all fell apart, like friends, lots of things. So that sort of 27, 28-year-old age, it was just really rough. I had a long-term relationship breakdown, which was coming for a long time, but it was, you know, it was the kick in the guts. And then I lost a few friends as well. And I was deeply depressed, like in a real hole.
You would have lost yourself to find yourself, but you would have lost yourself. And it sounds like what resilience means to you is how you show up for yourself and how you navigate change.
100%, definitely. And it's about being adaptable. But I had to go to that real, I mean, I was rock bottom, and I was rock bottom for maybe 1 or 2 years, I think. And it just felt like, I didn't think I was going to get out of it, to be honest.
How did you feel when you were rock bottom? Like, tell me about that moment. Like, do you remember a moment? Like, what were you doing?
I didn't want to live.
Yeah.
And I not only thought about it, I didn't really plan it, but I definitely thought about it every day. It was all on my mind. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I go forward? You know, I couldn't see a solution, because I was just in this ruminating thought process. I was in deep pain. And, you know, I was, you know, crying myself to sleep sometimes.
Is that because you felt so disconnected because you had lost parts of your life and you were becoming something new, but you felt lost in that? Why do you think it was?
I think it was I was being confronted with the effects of my choices.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's been brutally honest.
And,
and that you know, my actions do affect others, and of course, and myself as well. Ultimately, I affect myself, and that it's only up to me to change it. That was a lesson, but I really had to purge a lot of people, which were, you know, not probably true friends in a sense, but you know, before that I was a guy that would be like, you know, friends with everyone. You know, I had all these different groups of friends, and I'd be sociable with everyone. It was just make everyone happy, you know, and it was just this constant social thing. After that, it started to break down, which is good, because I knew what I struggled with when I knew I was could be quite successful at something, but I struggled with my focus because I was always about the party, right?
Yeah.
So this had to happen in a way, because it got me to rock bottom, which forced me to start to rise up again, and then go back onto the path which had already started to go on, which is this service path. And in the health and fitness realm, and I still didn't know what I wanted to study yet. I was like, okay, medicine. I'm going to be a doctor, right? And then I looked at medicine. I'm like, oh no. And the politics behind it, I was like, oh no, that'll drive me bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, physio's good because I like the body. Yeah. What about psychology? Psychology's good. Oh, what combines the both? No, that's pretty dry too. It's nothing out there. And then and then I met someone. It was actually a massage therapist, and they said, go. I've done kinesiology as well, and they said, go study with this college. It was a CCM in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. And then I looked up the course, and I was like, whoa, this is the thing. This is the thing I want to do. And it had everything, all the mind, body stuff. But I still sat on it. I was still scared. And at that time, I was actually doing a bit of bar work because I'd left PT. I was doing it in the park still, but I needed to do something completely different. And hospitality work for me was probably learning how to communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into management positions within sort of like 2.5 years spate. I got up to management positions, and there was actually a crossroads before I went down to the kinesiology sort of integrative health path. Was, do I go down this path, or do I become an owner of these wildly successful hotels and become a multimillionaire? You know, one path was obviously a lot more money at that time anyway, but it was, you know, filled with more partying and debauchery.
Yep.
Like unhealthy, like some of the people in there, you know, connected with some unsavory people as well. It was fun.
Yeah.
But it was literally, I had this crossroads.
Yeah.
And it was like, I knew this is where I needed to go. But then again, as fate would have it, I actually got fired from that job. Because I basically, I think I sabotaged myself.
Yeah.
I think it's the only time I've got fired, actually.
What was your role in the hospitality job?
I was like a bar manager at the time. And basically I did the wrong thing, and I had to make an example of me because I was the bar manager. So
but that was meant to be, by the sounds of it.
100%. Like it was good because I still continued on and did some more work at other places while I was studying, but like that confirmed for me that I was going in a different direction and back to where I was originally going.
Well, that's right. Well, that's an exact example of how a setback can be perceived as a setback at the time. But in hindsight, looking back, it was actually an event that guided you onto the right path that you were heading for the whole time. But these little events that occur that create endings, which we see as setbacks, can be the greatest gift of all.
100%. Yeah, it was like the universe was forcing me to do that. So it was disappointing at the time, but I also was kind of, I think it was just before it was around like age 29 or something, and I was like, oh my god, I'm almost 30, and you know, I can't believe I've done nothing basically. I got really down on myself, but then it was like once I started to go down this path and come out of it and really commit to it, it was like there was no looking back, and I haven't looked back since. So
tell me, when you came from the rock bottom and you were rising up, what was it, do you think, that became your turning point?
It was that.
Yeah. That moment, the crossroads. That
moment, and of just going, all right, come on, man, like don't stuff around anymore. You know, like this is it. This is, you know, you can keep doing what you've been doing the last few years. You've been floating around, you know, in an easy sort of job or career, and still sort of hanging on to this sort of party lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or you can do what you're meant to do, you know, what people have always said about you, which is your potential and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you can go and actually action it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what made you choose to serve and to go on the healing route, other than, which can be very enticing, you know, the pathway that promises you, you know, lots more money and, you know, which may or may not happen. But yeah, what was it that made you go, like obviously you started using your intuition more by the sounds of it, and you just felt more guided? What was it that made you really follow through on the path you're on now?
You're right. I can probably like logicalize it.
Yeah.
But really it was probably more of a knowing and an intuition and a sense that going down that path was a darker path, and there was much more openness and lightness around this path. Although the ego was threatened by that, because the ego was more identified with the other path.
Yes.
Whereas people had always known me as sort of, you know, Nick's that like sort of character. He's a bit of a crazy guy, you know. He's you know, he's never going to grow up sort of guy.
Yeah.
You know, why would, like, that's weird if you go down and be like healing and holistic health and stuff, like that's weird. So there was all these ego things that was like that
100%.
basically stopped me from going down that path sooner.
Yeah.
But I knew intuitively that was the right thing, and I suppose I wasn't, like, the universe got in the way and created a scenario, so I was basically almost forced to go that way. Because as that happened, literally the day or 2 days afterwards, I called up the college and said, "Oh, is there a course on?" They said, "Yeah, we've got one starting next week. Would you like to jump in?"
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on, you know.
The universe opens up when it's meant to be.
Yeah.
So how did you enjoy studying the course?
I loved it. Yeah, there was everything I thought it was going to be and more, and yeah, and just ignited that insatiable part of me, which is, you know, just go after it, and just go after it with everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, as soon as I got there, I'm like, I'm going to become a teacher. And then, like, I just said, I'm not going to say a word to anyone. I'm not going to tell anyone my intentions. And then they tapped me on the shoulder at the end of the course, and I'm like, cool. And then it was just like, whereas before I used to tell people, oh, my intentions all the time, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and, you know, it would lose its power. I was like, nah, just do the work. And so it was that mindset shift. And I observed this in a lot of soldiers, actually, a lot of really good soldiers who were a little bit older, and they had a level of maturity, and they were just quiet professionals, and they just, you know, they didn't say a lot, they didn't boast, they just did it. Yeah. And they had a lot of respect. Yeah. You know, I was young at the time, so I couldn't, you know, under 25, your brain's not working properly. And I'm like, yet I was able to fire, you know, weapons and, you know, rocket launchers and all that sort of stuff. But, but I look at them and go, oh, that's awesome. Like, and like I was very fit and all that sort of stuff, but I was like, I couldn't calm it. I didn't have the life experience, basically. It was a wisdom. And so then at that later stage, I was able to apply that and go, oh yeah, this is it. And I can apply that same mindset to this, that sort of warrior mindset. Yeah.
Hey, tell me, what's your definition of kinesiology? Because it's not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, well, the word itself, kinesiology, really means the study of movement. So if you could extrapolate that further and go, it could be movement of anything. Or really, I actually think modern kinesiology is where it came from applied kinesiology. It's really applied physiology. So which is also another brand of kinesiology, but it should really be named applied physiology, because you are interacting with the body, the nervous system, to ask questions of the nervous system, or the autonomic nervous system, or the subconscious, whatever you want to call it, about where the physiology or the psychology is out of homeostasis. Really. And this system, which is the 95% of us, it's a reflexive, unconscious, subconscious homeostasis system. It observes everything. So it always has, you know, it knows exactly what it needs. We don't. The conscious mind doesn't. But why it's so powerful is we can use biofeedback or muscle testing, the direct output of this system, to interact with the system very specifically, very accurately. What's a session that's in your career so far that has stood out? Like, what's the power of kinesiology to you? Like, it happens all the time, so I can't even Are there like just top 3 moments that you'll never forget? There's so many. I mean, like, I can only think of the ones that have happened recently. Yeah, like, even just one, like something that's powerful that blew your mind with what kinesiology can do to the brain and the changes that it can make. I mean, I even remember the session we had, and that was epic. My mum died on Mother's Day in May a couple of months ago, and when I saw you on Instagram, it's like I had this deep knowing, you need to go and see him, you need to meet him, and he's going to help you with something. And then our first session was very much about releasing the trauma of mum passing away in my arms of lung failure. So it was massive. And I shook for like 10, 15 minutes, to the point where we were
both you and I, as kinesiologists, were blown away with how long it went for.
Yeah, that was one of the longest ones I've seen, actually, where you had a neurogenic tremor, which is what can happen with the nervous system when it decides to let go of trauma. It just we just did something that triggered it, and it just went on. And that was huge. I mean, in terms of that, like, and there's a few other. Not everyone does that, but there are a few. It seems to be happening more and more, and it because I understand the concept of it more. But yeah, I've had even similar things where I will just literally be thinking of something in my head of, like, I'm asking questions in my mind while muscle testing, and the client will go into this reaction. So there's so much connection between thoughts, the nervous system, and then the other person's body. So that's pretty hard to wrap their head around. But even just things of, like, working manually or structurally. I had a guy who had, like, he couldn't lift his shoulder. He had basically frozen shoulder, like about 3 or 4 months ago. And he, he'd had it for 9 months, and he just, like, boom, stuck, and I just worked it. It was just there was muscles that were tight and the muscles that weren't, and they were entrapping a nerve, and it took literally 3 or 4 minutes, and he was boom. And then it has never come back, That was it. That's all he needed. That's a great acute sort of classic little case, and some cases are not like that. But I mean, it just happens. You just get used. In my clinic, I've just got used to what we were told is not possible. So you sort of get a bit spoiled. You know what I mean?
Oh, what we get to witness, and the healings and the transitional, the changes that can occur to the body in the body. Like, I've seen clients as well who have had a stomach pain their whole life, and then after 1 or 2 sessions, sometimes it's as quick as one, sometimes you need to work on it a few times to unpack it, and it goes away, and it's a permanent release. I know I sent a girlfriend of mine to you that couldn't sleep, and she now sleeps.
Yeah.
So we can get stuck in that frozen pattern of the fight or flight and stress response, and we become addicted to that fight or flight stress response in our modern day of living, drinking coffee, watching the news, going through, the time in the world that we're going through at the moment. And we can get so addicted to that rush and clutter, and we forget how familiar it could be to feel more in balance, but the power of kinesiology, because it communicates to the nervous system, and we're either in that survival fight or flight mode, or we are in growth and repair. And what I think kinesiology is all about is how to identify why that client or that person has become stuck in the stress response, when it occurred, what that means, and how to change the brain with flexibility and adaptability, that to change its mind that, we're not in survival, we are safe, and so that it can then fire growth and repair pathways instead. And that's how I think the healing occurs.
100%. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's not easy to explain, though. It's so great. And every kinesiologist works differently.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a tool. Because the kinesiology is not really often the mechanism by which the healing happens. It's a mechanism by which we assess how to affect the healing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, well, because within kinesiology, there's a lot of different you could use acupressure, you could use manual therapy, you could use crystals, you could use oils, you could use emotional release. They're all corrections, but the kinesiology testing is basically assessing very specifically which one to use, when and why, and how long for.
It's like a family tree in your head, isn't it? When you're discovering the imbalance and you're working out what's going on with that client, and then you're asking structural, biochemical, emotional, spiritual, electromagnetic questions, and that'll determine the path you're going down. And then you create the chaos in the body to bring up the stress, and then it's about like not just rearranging the furniture, it's about creating a new pattern that's going to rewire the brain to let go of what it needs to let go of, so it can find a way to heal.
100%. And that's what that chaos theory idea, which is Charles Krebs talks about. There's a lot of more research coming out about that, about creating and that's what a tremor is. It's basically it's you're in chaos, and in that chaos, the nervous system is finding its center again. Reorganizing its center.
Well, tell me, how is your life better now, having gone through what you've been through with so much change and needing to navigate your life in this wonderful direction that you've taken, which I'm sure you find so rewarding now? How is your life better now?
Night and day.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I've got a family now and all that sort of stuff. So that's very, very enriching.
yeah,
And I don't, yeah, look, the path I was going down, and if I kept going down, it was not good, and
yeah.
so it's been a constant evolution, and I've still got a long way to go. Like I've still got so much
Of
stuff I need to
course,
work through.
constantly. Yeah,
But I don't think I could have. I don't think I'd be here now without going down that path. For me, this is just me individually.
yeah, yeah,
I think it's exactly what I needed to. It was obviously a bit of a struggle at first trying to get things going, as everyone, in a new business is. But now it feels like I don't really work a day in my life. So, but I still, earn decent money and help a lot of people and
yeah,
have a fairly balanced life. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, look, it's night and day, and
yeah,
it's always the cool thing about it as well is I can work on myself and try to refine it, try to refine life as well. It's obviously always trying to find that balance in life is the hardest thing.
yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely it's just got me a whole different sense of purpose.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really think that you're displaying how resilience is really all about how we show up for ourselves when we're going through change or when we're feeling lost and we're finding a new direction, which is exactly what I think resilience is all about. And so if anyone listening out there that is going through a crossroads or they're feeling that internal communication of no, not that way, you need to find a new way, but you've got to find that courage and resilience and self-belief, what are 3 tips that you can give people of how to navigate through that bit that you've just described you've been through?
So the crossroads point.
Yeah, like how to navigate that, like what are 3 tips to navigate that really critical
So
change?
you need to come back to yourself. So how do you come back to yourself? Well, usually for most, actually, if you're a human being, it's generally going to be coming back to nature.
Yeah,
So whether that's going for walks in nature, going for hikes, going into the beach, spending
yeah,
time away from the technological aspects of life, coming,
yeah,
just that in and of itself will start to germinate or change your frequency.
yeah,
So you get into that human resonance, and that will start to bring you back into those regenerative pathways.
yes,
And so you can come back to center a bit. But you already know the answer. It's already there within you. So that's why you need to often quiet everything. And nature
yeah,
is one of those mechanisms to do that. So I'd say you definitely use nature as a mechanism. Rather than this escapism, come back to self
yes,
because you've got that answer. And then maybe journaling might be an idea as well. So, morning pages is quite good where you just wake up and a lot of people heard this, it's from the book called The Artist's Way.
yeah,
You wake up first thing and you just write down 3 pages.
okay,
You literally write thoughts that are in your head. So
yeah,
exactly as they are without editing. So you don't write a story, you write exactly what you're thinking. So if you're like, you open the page and you've got a blank, you write down, I don't know what to write, well, that's a nice bird. And that's literally, so
yeah,
it's nonsensical.
yeah,
It doesn't matter because no one else needs to see it ever. In fact, I usually burn it or throw it away. It's getting the clogging up of here out onto something else. So that's
yeah,
also a neurological process because that's, it's just you're getting from the brain to the hand, and then so it's this new connection rather than just sloshing around in your head. That is one of the most powerful psychological techniques I know of. So that's in the morning, and then you can also do it every day. You can sort of self-reflect, and go, well, what did this experience do with this? Even just reflecting on your day, such as like, okay, what are you inclined to normally do? So like,
yeah.
what did I do well? What did I not do not so well? What did I learn?
What great things happened today? What am I grateful for? This is exactly how I journal too. Just how often do we sit and reflect at the end of the day to go, what great things happened today? what difficult things happened today? What's on my mind? You know, what am I grateful for? It's a wonderful technique and ritual to do before we go to sleep and enter into the subconscious again, you know.
100%. Yeah,
Mm.
it's that journaling at the end of the day I find is different from the beginning of the day. The beginning of the day, especially if you're just sort of clogged up, like you don't know where to go, using that basically stream of consciousness writing is just getting all the nonsensical out of the way, and you will find that your thoughts clean up.
Yeah.
And then there'll be a cleaner sort of, you'll have those predominant thoughts come in. And so this is going to the last one, which is, if you don't know what to do with your life, or is this what it was about? Like where to go or what to do, or career, or with your life direction? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's generally the thing that you think about naturally, that you're inclined to do.
Yeah.
And that you enjoy, because that's the thing that's going to, it's the thing that you're passionate about. So
yeah,
it could be anything, because you need that passion to make it happen, and that will drive the impetus to make that thing happen. Once you make it happen, then you've got that passion anyway.
Yep.
And because you love it, and then it's not really work.
Yeah. And you can only identify what you're passionate about when you are able to receive and experience joy in your life. And we often block that when we're stressed as well, or we're experiencing a lack of self-worth, particularly when we're young and we're growing up. Like, I didn't know how to answer that question. I knew what was fun for me, but I didn't really know what I was passionate about, because I was so closed off within my heart for a particular period of time. But I was like, joy, what? You know. So that's why reconnecting and you know, strengthening your self-belief within yourself and your self-worth, and therefore being more playful, and then going with the flow, and then that's what creates that anchor within that allows you to know what situations to walk towards and which ones excuse me, to walk away from. So
you said that's something really important there, the self-belief. So that for me is underpinning all resilience. You need to believe in yourself, and obviously if you don't, then maybe need to work out why you don't. But the self-belief will be the kind of almost focal point to be able to have the resilience.
100%. And just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and going through new and difficult stuff is what builds it, because you don't know what you're capable of until you throw yourself into the deep end, and there are no mistakes. There's only learnings.
100%. Yeah, that is exactly right. As you get more, as you go through more, you get more resilient, which gives you more self-belief.
Exactly. It's catch-22. Can't get around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go through the stuff, not around. So you also you have online courses, face-to-face seminars, holistic health retreats. So you're going to start those again soon, because I know that we haven't been able to do much of that for a while.
Still assessing that. You know, I could have been, you know, there were so many opportunities to work overseas as well, you know. I got offered to run retreats in the Mediterranean, you know.
Oh, wow.
So all through the Mediterranean, and we would have also done a lot more retreats in Bali and in Thailand and places like that, and even maybe Byron Bay or places around Australia. So obviously that's there, and that's good to go. And we had a very successful first retreat, which was literally in March 2020. So we came back into the chaos. It was good timing, and it's considering how it went. I know that it's definitely needed, and probably even more so needed now. So, and probably a bit more refined now as well. So it's basically giving people an opportunity to tune out from their normal life, work on themselves, see talented practitioners, learn a little bit as well. But I just remember it was like some of the feedback on that course. We had one lady in particular who was a medical professional actually, and she came to the course, came to the retreat, and she looked very stressed and just wide, you know, exhausted. And on the first night, she was like in the corner, sort of. I just said, "How are you going?" And she just like lost it. She just, I feel broken. And she went through, and we had vagus nerve stimulators there as well. And she hadn't seen any of the practitioners by day 4. And I checked in with her on day 4. I said, "How are you going?" And she goes, "Oh, well, I'm about 80% now, compared to I was 5% when I first came." Well, she saw a few of other practitioners, including myself. And then at the end of it, I checked in with her again. I said, and she looked like her eyes were beaming, so the skin, the color had come back to her face, and she just looked grounded in herself. And she was like, I'm like almost 100%. So sometimes even it's a combination of things as to why that happens. It's that change of environment around the healing environment, working on yourself, getting your brain stimulated. It's just, that was for me, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. And it wasn't just her, but that one really stood out for me as like facilitating someone else's healing is as powerful as doing
it's very healing for the practitioner as well to witness. I totally agree. And well, definitely keep doing what you're doing, Nick. I really believe in your work. I think you're amazing. And if you guys want to check out Nick's work, jump on functionalneurohealth.com. And if you love this podcast, please share the love and subscribe on the Bend Like Bamboo channel. Nick, thank you so much for being with me today.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for having me.